He arrived in MotoGP like a question no one knew how to answer, carrying the quiet tension of a rider who understood that the real battle wasn't against the grid. It was against the instincts that had shaped him. From the first laps, there was something unsettling in the way the GP25 reacted beneath him, as if the motorcycle itself were testing his resolve, daring him to surrender the aggression that once defined him. And yet, somewhere between the trembling edge of carbon brakes and the thin margin of Michelin front grip, Bulega discovered a rhythm no rookie should ever find this early. Not with worn tires. Not in the final laps. Not in MotoGP. What happened next didn't look real. While veterans fought to preserve rubber and energy, he unlocked speed that seemed to rise from nowhere, a late race surge so precise it felt like he had slipped into the machine's hidden frequency. Engineers stared at the telemetry as if witnessing a mechanical confession, realizing he was extracting performance from the GP25 in a way only seasoned contenders usually understand. His fastest lap came when physics insisted it shouldn't, when the bike should have been begging for mercy, not asking for more. And that's the mystery. How did a rider with barely a handful of MotoGP laps find a pace that bent the race around him? How did he turn fatigue into clarity and fear into speed? Nicolo Bulega didn't just shock MotoGP. He exposed a secret layer of the sport that only emerges when talent, intelligence, and instinct collide at the edge of control. And what he found there is the reason the paddock can't stop talking. Here is a single, powerful linking sentence that bridges the hook into key point one with emotional tension and technical weight. And to understand how a rookie could summon that impossible late-race clarity, we have to go back to the very first moment he touched the GP25 and began rewriting the instincts that once defined him. Nicolo Bulega felt the weight of the GP25 beneath him like a living instrument that demanded a new kind of silence, a precision that whispered instead of shouted, and in that whisper he sensed the magnitude of what was ahead. He knew immediately that MotoGP was not an extension of Superbike but a universe with its own gravity, bending his instincts in unfamiliar directions and forcing an introspective pause between every breath. The first laps revealed a truth he hadn't anticipated, the truth that the GP25 didn't reward instinctive force but meticulous release, and he murmured inwardly, "Stay calm, stay refined, feel the bike's language." Engineers later admitted they were shocked at how he interpreted feedback from the inertial platform sensors, a rarely discussed system that monitors microtilt angles down to tenths of degrees to correct traction control response. Bulega absorbed these details not as data but as emotion, letting them flow through his hands as if he were deciphering a forgotten dialect. He reflected on the tension between muscle memory and new technique, accepting that adaptation meant abandoning the security of familiarity. The heat rising from the carbon brakes made the air shimmer, framing him in a surreal haze like a violinist warming his strings before an impossible concerto. He confronted the paradox of riding faster by resisting the urge to act faster, a contradiction that gnawed at him with every corner entry. In World Superbike, you can brake very hard and carry that aggression into the corner. In MotoGP, it's the complete opposite, he reminded himself, letting the quote hang in his mind like a rule of survival. Each gear change with the seamless shift gearbox felt like peeling away the past, smoothing out every mechanical edge he once relied on. The bike carried an arrogance all its own, demanding not obedience but comprehension, as if testing whether he deserved its trust. He listened to the motor's cadence while leaning into turn 7, sensing how the counter-rotating crank subtly stabilized the chassis during mid-corner load transfer. For a moment, he allowed nostalgia to enter, remembering the raw violence of his Superbike days, only to feel them dissolve into the wider horizon of MotoGP clarity. He reminded himself that evolution begins in discomfort, and discomfort had become his closest companion. The Ducati technicians watched in fascination as he began adjusting brake pressure with a delicacy usually seen only in seasoned riders, discovering a rhythm that wasn't taught but felt. Every lap carved away another layer of doubt, revealing a rider who understood that mastery emerges not from dominance but from surrender. His breathing synced with the throttle modulation, creating a harmony that felt both fragile and powerful. He sensed that fear and control could coexist if balanced like light passing through stained glass, fractured yet beautiful. The asphalt beneath him seemed to pulse with intention, urging him forward into the unknown. With each completed lap, he realized he wasn't adapting to the GP25, he was becoming part of it. And when he finally pushed past the final apex of the session, he understood that the greatest transformations happen quietly, and this was the moment everything changed. Nicolo Bulega entered his first MotoGP Friday with the trembling electricity of a man stepping onto a stage he had studied his entire life, Yet nothing in that study prepared him for the razor-thin precision required here. The morning light struck the Portimao asphalt like a blade, and he felt the GP25 respond with a nervous heartbeat that pulsed through the clip-ons into his palms. He tasted the tension in the air as if the paddock itself were exhaling slowly, waiting to see whether the rookie would rise or crack beneath pressure. His inner voice repeated, "Read the bike, don't chase the bike," as he navigated the treacherous downhill of Turn 1 with a mix of awe and calculation. What surprised observers most wasn't just his speed, but the intellectual clarity with which he interpreted every vibration and anomaly in real time. He understood immediately that Michelin's carcass stiffness responded to temperature in a far narrower window than Pirelli's, a technical detail many newcomers take weeks to internalize. The front tire's whispering warnings felt eerily alive, and he leaned into them with the sensitivity of someone tuning an ancient piano. He finished P14, less than a second from P1, and yet the stopwatch only captured a fraction of the transformation unfolding within him. After the session, he quietly admitted, "With Pirellis, you can do things that are not feasible here, so you have to act in reverse. It's a bit like relearning how to ride." Those words drifted through the garage like the faint crack of thunder before a storm, hinting at deeper shifts yet to come. Every engineer around him sensed that he had already begun deciphering a machine that punishes impatience and rewards emotional discipline. The GP25 vibrated differently around the long right-handers, demanding he trust the rear load transfer more than his instincts advised. That conflict between instinct and adaptation created a friction inside him that felt almost intimate, a tension that sharpened his senses rather than clouding them. Watching him ride was like watching ink spread through water, deliberate yet uncontrollable, finding its own shape. He recognized that the challenge wasn't speed but interpretation, reading subtle cues from the electronic engine braking maps that changed character as humidity shifted. The first session's success didn't inflate him. It unsettled him in the most productive way possible. He realized that understanding MotoGP wasn't a leap but an unfolding, a steady unspooling of layers hidden beneath layers. Reporters tried to reduce his performance to talent, but he knew the truth was far more fragile. He felt suspended between two worlds, one he had mastered and one that demanded total reinvention. The track felt like a living diary, each sector a new confession waiting to be written. And when he crossed the line on that final lap, he understood that P14 wasn't a result but a revelation, and revelations never arrive gently. Nicolo Bulega approached qualifying with a sharpened focus, yet the GP25 confronted him with a level of precision that punished even the smallest hesitation. He felt the tension building as he rolled into Turn 5, sensing the lap unfolding beneath him like a fragile sheet of glass. A microscopic misjudgment sent the front drifting wider than he intended, and he knew instantly that the top 10 had slipped from his grasp. He whispered inwardly, "Hold the line, trust the touch," but the moment had already unraveled. Reporters later described the error as minor, though for a rider living inside thousandths of a second, it felt seismic. What came next in the sprint exposed the deeper struggle between instinct and adaptation that defined his debut. "It was my first laps with a hard front tire. I was just trying to understand how this tire works. I braked too hard and lost the front," he admitted, offering a clarity rare in rookies. The admission resonated through the paddock because it revealed not weakness but method. Beneath the fall lay an old habit rooted in superbike timing, a reflex that MotoGP's Michelin front punished with ruthless honesty. Few noticed that the data revealed an abrupt spike in brake pressure at lean, a subtle yet deadly combination that exposed the limits of the hard compound carcass. The bike slid with a cold finality that felt like a door slamming shut. He walked back to the garage, feeling every step as a reminder of the learning curve he had willingly embraced. The mechanics greeted him with quiet nods, understanding that evolution happens through impact as much as through progress. He replayed the crash in his head, breaking it down frame by frame as if studying an unfamiliar constellation. The sensation of the front tucking haunted him briefly, a ghost lingering in the margin between confidence and discipline. Yet he knew immediately that the failure belonged to instinct, not machinery, and that realization steadied him. His humility in the debrief surprised even the veterans observing him from across the pit lane. He described the experience with calm precision, dissecting it like a surgeon outlining a procedure. The sprint had given him something brutal but invaluable, a glimpse into the threshold where speed dies and understanding begins. In that raw space, he recognized that adaptation was not a curve but a chasm he had to cross consciously. The day ended with a silence that felt heavy but purposeful. And as he shut his visor for the final cool-down ride, he sensed that every mistake he survived would forge the rider he was becoming. Nicolo Bulega began Sunday's race with a quiet determination of a man rewriting his own instincts in real time, feeling every corner as a test of restraint rather than aggression. The opening laps were less a battle for position and more a private negotiation between muscle memory and new discipline. He muttered inwardly, ease in, breathe out, feel the limit without touching it, as he approached each braking zone with unnerving precision. The GP25 demanded a softness that clashed with the superbike habits carved into his hands, forcing him into a mental tug-of-war. He later explained, before every corner, I was repeating in my head not to brake hard. Yesterday I crashed because I was finding my rhythm and instinctively riding like I did with Italian tires. That confession revealed the raw psychological effort embedded in every lap. In the cockpit, he sensed how the carbon brakes responded differently when the discs rose past 600 degrees, a niche detail that only deepened the challenge of modulating pressure. Each time he touched the lever, he felt the weight of consequence hiding behind a millimeter of movement. The braking zones grew longer in his mind, stretching like corridors where he met his past self head-on. He imagined his old superbike technique as a shadow sprinting beside him, daring him to slip back into familiar violence. Instead, he chose patience, carving away his former habits with the delicate persistence of water-shaping stone. The race became an intimate classroom lit by the strobe of corner exits and brief flashes of clarity. He sensed the Ducati's front end speaking in coded vibrations he was finally beginning to decode. Every successful lap added a thread to the fragile tapestry of confidence he was weaving. His crew watched in awe as the telemetry showed smoother brake release curves emerging lap after lap. That subtle evolution hinted at a rider growing more fluent in MotoGP's unforgiving dialect. The pressure of the pack around him created a rhythm that sharpened his senses rather than overwhelming them. As fuel burned off and grip dwindled, his mind quieted into a disciplined hum. The asphalt beneath him felt like a vast manuscript he was learning to read at full speed. With each corner, he shed another layer of obsolete instinct. And when the final laps approached like a rising tide, he realized that the discipline he built in silence would unleash the pace that changed everything. Nicolo Bulega felt the final third of the race shift beneath him like a secret door opening, revealing a pace he didn't know he could summon under exhaustion. The worn Michelins trembled with every lean angle, yet the Ducati GP25 seemed to whisper possibilities instead of limits. He breathed deeply and thought, now trust it, trust yourself, let the bike show you the truth. Each corner exit carried a vibration that reminded him how close he was to the edge, but he embraced that sensation with unexpected serenity. Riders around him began to fade as their rear grip vanished, but his rhythm sharpened with a clarity that bordered on eerie. He explained later with surprising calm, in the last 6 or 7 laps, my pace wasn't too bad. I was able to close the gap. My best lap came with 2 laps to go when the tires were already finished. That sentence echoed through the garage because no one expected such cold precision from a rookie on degrading rubber. The data revealed that his engine braking maps stabilized perfectly as the fuel load reached its lowest point, a subtle technical shift that allowed him to maintain smoother corner entry. He felt that stability as a gentle nudge rather than a push, guiding him like moonlight gliding across water. Every split time seemed to shrink with a determination that bordered on inevitability. The GP25 responded with increasing agility, as if rewarding his restraint earlier in the race. His crew chief watched the timing screens with disbelief, seeing sector deltas turn green when they should have been deep red. Bulega sensed the tires fraying beneath him, yet the lack of grip became a strange ally instead of an enemy. The motorcycle danced slightly under braking, but the movement felt almost musical. He knew he wasn't chasing positions anymore. He was chasing understanding. The wind down the straight carried the scent of burning rubber and strange possibility. His confidence grew with each corner, threading speed through fatigue like silk pulled through rings. When he crossed the line for his fastest lap, he felt a jolt of realization rather than triumph. That single moment crystallized the strange alchemy between fear and control. His pace did not arrive by accident, but through a convergence of patience, intelligence, and courage. And as the lap time flashed on his dashboard like a flare in the night, he understood he had stepped into the rider he was meant to become. Nicolo Bulega approached the Grand Prix with the unhurried concentration of a man dismantling a puzzle rather than chasing glory, letting each lap unfold like a page in a technical diary he alone could read. The race was not a battlefield for him, but a laboratory pulsing with variables, sensations, and hidden patterns. He reminded himself silently, absorb everything, don't rush, let the bike speak before you answer. The Ducati GP25 responded to this patience by revealing nuances that a frantic rider would have missed entirely. After the race, he explained, even though it was the race, for me it was a session. That's when I understood the most because I had the opportunity to spend more time on the bike. Those words resonated with Ducati engineers because they captured a mindset that transforms raw talent into long-term mastery. He focused on interpreting traction control intervention frequencies that subtly changed as tire temperatures fluctuated, a detail many rookies never detect. Each sensation through the seat and bars carried meaning, and he read those signals with a scholar's curiosity. The race became a moving classroom where every lap built upon the last with patient precision. He treated traffic not as opponents but as dynamic references for understanding the GP25's behavior under varying aerodynamic loads. This analytical approach made him stand out in a paddock often dominated by instinctive aggression. The track felt like a massive chalkboard where he wrote and erased theories at 300 kilometers per hour. Even his mistakes became valuable notes rather than emotional weights. His team marveled at how his telemetry showed deliberate experimentation with brake release timing and corner entry roll speed. It was as if he were sculpting his riding style with invisible tools shaped by discipline and clarity. The crowd saw a rookie surviving, but Ducati saw a rider evolving. He carried himself with a calmness that felt almost scientific in its detachment. Yet beneath that calm simmered a quiet hunger to understand everything the bike offered. This blend of detachment and desire created a rhythm that felt both methodical and alive. And by the final laps, it was clear that Bulega hadn't simply ridden a race, he had rewritten what a rookie could learn in a single afternoon. Pecco Bagnaia watched Bulega's performance with the reserved interest of a champion who rarely offers praise. Yet something in the rookie's composure caught his attention immediately. The garage felt unusually still as Bagnaia approached him, sensing an uncommon clarity in the young rider's eyes. A quiet hum from the data racks blended with the tension in the air like a low, trembling chord. Bulega, still processing the race, thought, "Stay humble, stay open, listen to every detail." When Bagnaia finally spoke, his words landed with unexpected weight. He didn't need too much advice. To finish your first race in the points is a good result. He can be very happy, and in Valencia he can make another step. Those words echoed through the team because Bagnaia's approval is as rare as perfect traction on a cold-out lap. The compliment carried more significance than any headline, hinting at a deeper recognition of Bulega's methodical intelligence. Engineers nodded quietly, knowing such praise usually signals a rider with long-term factory potential. Bulega, however, didn't let the admiration cloud his perception. He felt the Ducati's fickle nature firsthand, especially the GP25's unpredictable mid-corner front load that shifts subtly with wind direction, a technical quirk that even veterans struggle to interpret. When asked about Bagnaia's recent inconsistency, he answered with surprising maturity. "In my opinion, he doesn't know what's going on either, just has to try to understand why he can't find the same feeling all the time." That remark was not criticism but empathy sharpened by fresh experience. He understood the delicate dance between rider and machine that defines Ducati's current DNA. Bagnaia's struggles, seen from Bulega's perspective, revealed how complex the bike's emotional and mechanical balance can be. The rookie sensed that solving the mystery of Ducati's feeling required not aggression but emotional intelligence. And that realization came not from arrogance but from observation. The garage lights flickered slightly as the team continued analyzing telemetry, adding a faint cinematic tension. Bulega felt strangely aligned with the machine's contradictions, as if understanding its moods were part of his calling. The moment created an unspoken bridge between rookie and champion. And as the session wound down, it became clear that Bulega had not only earned Bagnaia's respect but exposed the fragile truth at the heart of Ducati's challenge. Nicolo Bulega ended his debut weekend with a kind of stillness that comes only after confronting uncomfortable truths, and that calm made his honesty even more striking. He carried the weight of his mistakes with a sincerity that disarmed even the most hardened Ducati engineers. Inside his helmet, he whispered, "You're learning, not proving, keep walking toward the unknown." His reflections after the race felt like quiet confessions carved from experience rather than excuses. He admitted with raw candor, "It's too early to say. I think I still have a lot of margin because I ride badly, I make starts that are not perfect, and I make the mistakes of inexperience." Those words revealed a humility seldom seen in riders who score points on their MotoGP debut. The garage absorbed his confession with a gravity that hinted at something deeper forming beneath the results. He studied his telemetry with the seriousness of a man reading a map out of a labyrinth, tracing the slight inconsistencies in his throttle application. One little-known detail he picked up immediately was how Ducati's torque delivery changes subtly with shifts in track temperature, creating nuances that only attentive riders detect. That sensitivity marked him not as a visitor, but as someone preparing for a long stay. His mindset was not clouded by the thrill of survival, but illuminated by the desire for refinement. He understood that learning is a staircase built from imperfection, and each step mattered. When asked about Valencia, he offered another piece of quiet truth. The last time I raced at Valencia was in 2021, so I expect some difficulties, but after that there will be a test that I think will be important for me. His anticipation carried both anxiety and purpose, a mixture that reveals a rider on the verge of evolution. The track ahead felt to him like a coastline at low tide, exposing new terrain to explore. Every challenge promised another layer of understanding. His engineers admired how he transformed vulnerability into momentum. He carried himself with a gentleness that contrasted the violence of the machine he rode. That emotional balance made him stand out in a sport built on extremes. And as the weekend closed with the quiet hum of generators and fading voices, it became clear that Bulega's humility was not weakness but ignition.